Just walks out.
Hello?
I'm here.
Hello, everybody. Slightly Slanted Sleuth, joined today with by Yvonne Gordon and Jack from Frater Est Veritas. I hope I said that right.
And explain again what that means. The Father, God, and what?
God is truth.
Oh, God is okay.
God
Very
is
good.
truth. But I don't know if if the stream didn't sync up on this one, so I got to tell everybody. Uh, I don't know why Zoom's been doing this.
Hello.
Hello, hey Jack. I'm trying to tell everybody to look for a different stream because they're on the other one. And as usual, I messed it up.
Is my sound good?
Your sound is kind of a little, I don't know, tech.
What about
does it
now?
sound like radio feedback or something?
Is the feedback gone?
Yep, it's gone now.
Okay. It's not too loud, am I?
Sounds pretty good.
This is like a $500 microphone, so it's picking up like noise and all that stuff.
Sounds great now, though.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, it should do with the amount of money it bloody well cost.
So I want to say hi to Michelle Can-Am Free, Robert Francis Shoots for Par, and Elsie Darling. Hi, everybody. How are you? Today we got Yvonne and Jack, and we're going to talk about whatever comes to our minds. No.
I just want to show a picture of my husband and me.
Awesome.
That was when he was alive and we were younger. So I just keep that here right now, so I look at it all day long.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Speaking on that, since your husband has passed, I mean, how are you dealing with that? Are you oh.
Yeah, it's 6 months in a couple of days. He died on February 25th. It's like he never left me though. He's still with me all the time. I talk to him. I'm a little kooky now.
Right.
That does make you kooky.
I refuse to accept after almost 50 years that he's gone.
50 years you guys were together?
Huh?
You guys were together for 50 years?
Close, yeah.
Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah. Okay.
That's
so any questions about marriage, just feel free.
Yeah.
So what's up with you today, Jack? How are you doing, bud?
I'm good. I'm hanging in there. I resigned from my job, and my boss called me and said he didn't want me to resign. So I'm going to be working part-time now. So that gives me that's going to allow me to do what I really love doing and still just work a regular job as well. So I'm going to go in 5 days a week, just till 12 o'clock. So I keep a routine. So, yeah. In fact, Yvonne, you were actually quite influential in all of this. There was something you said that really caught my imagination. Not even my imagination. It spoke to me on quite a deep level. I think, do you remember saying you have to figure out what your fundamental truth is and your fundamental lie?
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, because I was working. I studied engineering, even though I didn't want to, and was working as an engineer. And it's okay and all that, but it's not like fulfilling. And all the time I was doing that, I had this like very deep like voice inside of me saying, this is not what you want to do. It's making you miserable. Because what I really want to do is music professionally. So I was going to resign and just go for it. And I've changed my mind and decided to just go part-time for now. Because I'm going to get into teaching and amongst other stuff. So while that's all in its incubation phase, I'll still be working until I'm able to sustain myself from what I really love to do. And I think that will help me,
Well,
yeah,
good for you.
Give your best energy to what you love, and that way you can develop what you love, and then give the rest of it to what you need to do. Not everybody can do that. Not everybody has that option. So
well this is what the way I feel about it. If it's something that is like a God-given purpose that you're supposed to be doing, reality will support it, basically. You know, if you'd already had prior responsibilities, or I don't know. I mean, yeah, I just find that reality is going to be very supportive, and I've like done divinations with the I Ching about it, and I asked it the oracle about a year ago. Oh, can I start doing music professionally? And it said like it was the hexagram that said wait or patience. But if you read the actual translation from the Chinese book, it says it basically I'm paraphrasing here, but it says wait, and then at the end it says once you then do this, the soul can finally gain rest. So it's talking about it's something that you actually need to do. Your soul really desires to do. That's going to enable. So yeah, it's very difficult to make that decision though. You have to overcome a huge amount of social pressure, both consciously and unconsciously from society. I found, and
There's
it
an
actually
inner
took.
pressure and an outer pressure, and
Yeah,
those
yeah,
two
both.
form us. You know,
Yeah,
they
yeah,
guide us. Like I wanted to do a lot of things over my lifetime, and although I did accomplish a lot, I also I didn't know what I was really supposed to do until I got there, which was to find that inner light within my root, within
yeah.
that, to complete me, like inside.
No,
And
I
then,
understand. Yeah, I see. Now, I'd still say that that's my fundamental purpose, but in working in the temporal world, it's not like you can't earn a living from being a mystic. You know, it's not about money. Money is basically the very final consideration in what I want to do. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Um, but yeah, it's
me too.
difficult. It's difficult, you know. If I do things for the money, it makes my just makes me bloody miserable, you know. If oh yeah, I get more money at this job, I'll do this job. It doesn't work out. It never works out, and that's not the same for everyone. Um, have you ever read about the North Node in astrology, Yvonne?
I don't know much about astrology. I know my own chart to a
Mm,
point, but I don't really know. I know that it comes from the Mazzaroth in Egypt, and I know that we're supposed to come out of it.
right,
Like Jesus of Nazareth he came out of the Mazareth.
right.
So, but and I can see it in my personality. I can see the different signs, but I don't know about nodes and stuff like that. I don't know anything about that.
Well, in its most like basic definition, the North Node, it's a calculation, so it's not a planet itself, between where the moon crosses the ecliptic. And the North Node is supposed to be like your own internal compass and where north is pointing, and it's where your soul wants to move to. It's what archetypes your soul desires to experience in your life. So for me, it's like a North Node in Pisces. So there's a real, and in the eighth house, which is the occult. So like mysticism and the occult are the two things my soul wants to move to more than anything else.
Yeah.
And that's all well and good to do in my private life, but as a profession, I just don't see how I can reconcile mysticism with the modern world because, like Phil says, I don't want to set up an institution and charge new age people to come to a spiritual retreat to just, I don't want to do that, you know?
Right.
Yeah. Where's your third house? I mean, what's in your third house?
It's empty.
What?
It's empty.
Oh, okay. Does that, well, according
Yeah.
to your ascendant, right? If you, whatever your ascendant is, then the second house, and then the third house is your money house. So I was just
Yeah,
wondering.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's empty, and I've got the south. I've got the no. So I think no. The third house is communication and like family and neighbors and pets and all that stuff. That's the Gemini archetype. The money house is the second house, which is
Just
Taurus.
second. See, I don't remember exactly.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. See, when you have the south node in Taurus, which is what I've got, it means that you're moving away from the archetypes of money and wealth and family as well. And that's ironic because I live 6,000 miles away from my family, right? Um, but that means that if you do things with financial motivation uh, as a chief reason for doing it's just not going to work. Your soul's just going to be like, no, you know, reality won't support that. That's what I found so far in my life. So yeah, it's difficult. I mean,
Well, according to like Eric Erickson, no, what's his name, Maslow, he talks about the hierarchy of needs, and money is up a little bit on the evolutionary ladder supposedly, but it isn't as high as knowledge. Like once you reach that level of knowledge, you want knowledge more than money. And when you're done with money and when you're done with knowledge, then you're finally ready for enlightenment, because knowledge comes
yeah,
prior to enlightenment.
yeah, of
Well,
course,
money is
yeah,
a level we all had to go through somewhere, in our evolution of our
mm,
soul. And we just got to a point where it just didn't mean that much to us anymore. I
yeah,
think that's what happened
yeah.
to
No,
me too.
it doesn't seem to. It's like I kind of feel there's a case of like you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't, particularly in living in California, you know, where everything's so expensive and stuff like that. But it, it it's a challenge I find for someone with mystical like aspirations that you I don't know how to explain it, Yvonne, but it's like
Well, if you're
you
alone, are you alone? Do you have, are
no,
you
no,
married?
no, no. I'm not alone. I'm not
Oh,
alone. No.
yeah, so
So
you gotta
I
contend
have
with that,
support.
right?
Yeah, I have outside support, and that's what I
Okay.
mean by reality supporting you. You know, and yeah, it's I find myself in a position where I finally said no to the social pressure that society puts on us, not just in America or just the Western world, the whole world, like the global society. And there is like a new sense of liberation, and I definitely feel much happier now. But it's not really about happiness; it's about what's meaningful to me. Do you see what I mean? Um, yeah,
Yeah, if only you could do that to yourself, like you could shut out the world, if you could only shut out your own conflict that you seem, do you still have a conflict inside of you about it? You know what I
well,
mean?
I've now settled it. I've now
Oh, okay,
settled that conflict, and I've made the decision, and I've made a plan of action to move forward.
good.
And but that conflict lasted for years. It lasted for over a decade. So yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult, but I do think there is also an element to it. Is in a more temporal sense, is that when you decide to do your true purpose, that God wants you to do, whether it's and this is before enlightenment and the accumulation of knowledge, like I said, strictly in a temporal sense. When you are doing what you're supposed to be doing, there's an element where you become an inspiration to other people by doing that. Do you see what I mean? People will appreciate you because you're not another miserable person in a job that you hate, essentially. Do you know what I mean? Does this make sense to you?
It does. I just have to say that my son is he's a really brilliant artist, and
Hmm.
he's a musician also. He's written a lot of songs and taught himself to, he's just really good at what he does. But if you don't make it in that world, if there's an element in you that says, if I don't make it, I feel like I'm going to feel like a failure. That's something to be careful about, because that
Yeah.
can bring you down to where,
Yeah.
it's like
No.
ruin that
See,
that ability,
yeah, I've very clearly defined. My initial statement of intent is clearly defined to avoid that, because really, all I want to do, the main goal is to make the piano an improvisational extension of myself. So my emotions can instantaneously translate into music. That's really what I want to do. And, you know, performing on stage and making money, that doesn't matter to me. That doesn't matter to me. It's just something my soul has to do. It's something it needs to do it. There's no, and I can't get around it, Yvonne. I've tried to navigate around it and avoid it, and this longing will just always come back and haunt me. You know, it's
won't leave you
I don't know
alone.
why. I don't know the why. You know, it just is. And yeah,
Well,
so
I made a video today about, if your path has a heart and your heart has a path, you got to follow it, because you're not going to make peace, even if you go through it and you find that's not right for you anymore, or you've done all you can or whatever. But if your heart is in it, it's really hard to kill that part of you. You don't want to kill that part of you.
yeah, no, you could, yeah. I
But you got
mean,
to work. You got to like really give it everything you got. That's
well,
what I
this is
found
it.
out in the
The way
spiritual
I
path
see it is,
too.
I have to burn out the desire almost. You know, because yeah. Anyway, yeah, it's a deep thing. You know, it's a deep thing, and a lot of people in this world never will come to this decision. You know, maybe they don't need to. Maybe they don't have to. They just get on with it. You know,
Hmm. Yeah.
so you know, I guess once you have kids and you have mortgage payments and stuff like that, you're kind of more bound to just doing what you need to do. So, but this is the thing, is like the whole uh like mysticism is so far beyond like just survival in the temporal world. You know, I find it so far removed from it, and yeah. I don't know. I don't know. It's kind of deep. I'm kind of, I don't know
That
how to explain it.
the spiritual never left me alone. I went to school for nursing and then counseling, and I did all these different things. I got a few degrees, but it would never leave me alone. It just hounded me and hounded me. And when I didn't go in that direction, my life became miserable.
Mm,
So it was meant for me to stay on that journey reluctantly. I was a very reluctant person. I
mm,
wasn't like a gung ho, but I could feel it always coming after me, always
mm.
saying, "Get back, come back," and I had to, because I guess somebody said it was my destiny. So I believe that it
Yeah,
was, because it just never left me alone. That's how you kind of know, because it says that you get sought as much as in the Bible. It actually says that God seeks you and brings you to the Messiah.
mm,
So,
mm.
and then the Messiah brings you back to God, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
But as far as like other things, it's the same thing. Like, I want to be, I know what you're saying, and you got to, especially when you're dealing in two different worlds or three, you got to try to fill everything up that you came here to do.
mm,
You don't know
yeah,
sometimes how to do it, where to put your focus, but it sounds like you found you got to really give yourself to this.
yeah. Well, I guess the key word for me is like transformation across different archetypes, because like there's the spiritual transformation, but I also see myself having to do like a musical one. I don't know why I have to do it. I just do have to do it. It is what it is. So, but I find that with the music I play, see, I play jazz, and I find that it's very I find it to be, if you read a lot of what the great jazz musicians said, they were all very spiritual people. You know, they weren't just regular, like, rock star drug addicts, like the Keith Richards kind of archetype. You know, there's definitely a spiritual component to learning how to improvise, because it's a creative process of self-learning, just like the great work is, in the same sense. They're it seems to me that learning to be a fluent improvisational musician and learning the great work, they seem like they're complementary functions fundamentally, you know.
Yeah, I would say so,
You know,
because they're both a part of you, so they would
yeah.
they would, probably have to dovetail together at some point.
Yeah, there's another point that you said just then, Yvonne, that is, I've kind of come to realize. I've become very comfortable with the way society is, in as much as that there are still some people here that, I guess, it's not their purpose in this life to find illumination and ascension and to study mysticism or even be religious. It's just
Mm,
not what they're here to do. It's not what their soul needs at this time in their own
right.
personal journey. So I'm I've made a lot of peace with the way society manifests, etc., and the archetypes interplay with one another. It doesn't matter so much to me, because it's not everyone's path, and maybe it
Right.
will be at some time for them. But yeah, that's given me a great sense of peace, you know. So
Yeah, that's a hard one for me, because that's such a powerful experience,
mm,
that you're just so sure that it's going to happen to everyone any minute now. And oh, it's like you just get overwhelmed and you don't know what else to focus on when it really hits you. So you start talking about it all the time, like that voice in the wilderness, and you're like, you just bother everybody. They're like, can't you shut up, and
oh, I
you're
don't.
like, no, I can't,
Yeah,
I can't. It's like, I have to talk about this. And it
yeah,
becomes a solitary path because nobody cares.
yeah. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, no one cares.
Yeah,
I found that throughout my 20s, when you want to discuss mysticism and the occult with people,
yeah,
they just look at you and give you a funny look, and they go,
right.
"Why are you
It's
talking
true.
bollocks?" Like, so
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
What's going on, Steve? You're quiet
Well,
over there.
I'm listening and I'm chatting with people in chat, and it's
What?
per usual, Thoth is the antithesis to our thesis, and he's back and forth as usual. And we've got Robert V came in 8:30, Free Press 666, Thoth and on, Elsie Darling. Did I get everybody? Paul from Newcastle. Let me make sure I got
Is Paul
everybody.
from Newcastle in England? Newcastle.
Yes, I believe so.
Uh, how are you, man?
And Truth in Me, Tina's here. And I just want to say hi to everybody. And I'm
any
listening to you.
questions, any comments?
Oh, yeah, there's plenty of comments. Does anybody play
Oh,
chess? And everybody thinks that this life is a game. And
Yeah, I play. Who plays chess?
yep.
uh, Robert V does.
Ask him what his rating is.
What's your rating, Robert? It'll be in a second. And Paul from Newcastle said yes. Newcastle in. What's your rating, Robert? But yeah, everybody. So what do you think? What are you guys' comments on that? Life is a game, or what do you think this? Because people are arguing in chat, or not arguing, but debating whether or not life is a holographic thing, or imaginary, or not real. And I think life.
Well, according to Judaism, the whole holiday of Purim, in the end, that last awakening is that it was all a game. That's their belief. But you can't just come into this life and say it's a game, so I'm not going to play, because why are you here? You're here to play. You're here to win, right? And you got to
Yeah,
figure out what it is you're trying to do here, because it is. I mean, Paul talks about a race that he wants to win, you know. So we're all here by design or by choice, or, you know, because we have to be, to get to that next level, to fulfill the purpose of life. But
And what
yeah,
is
it's a
that?
game. It's a
What do you
game.
think? What do you think the fulfillment of our purpose in life is?
no,
Well, go ahead.
yeah, I mean, it's a game, but to me, it's a very serious game. You know, and I don't think. See, this is another thing that brought me peace when I was thinking about all the malignant people in the world, and even people that are in, you know, huge positions of influence that are pathological. Another thing that brought me a sense of peace is that um, reality will deal with them ultimately in the end. You know, if you want to go around um, putting people under your will and etc. and doing all this unhelpful stuff that I mean, yeah, it just brings me you know, I don't really care about it so much anymore because I know they'll have their um the Pied Piper will always come calling ultimately, I find. Do you know what I mean by that? Like karma
Yeah.
will deal with everything ultimately. So, you know, and in terms of like life being a holographic computer or that, I don't really care what it particularly is so much. It's more what I need to do seems much more important. The actual media, the medium or the platform that it is doesn't matter so much. It's more that the experience is real. So how do I navigate the experience seems more important, you know. I couldn't care less if it's a quantum holographic computer, blah blah blah, etc. Doesn't matter.
Well, what is that maxim from what is it, the Kabbalion, where it says, "Be mindful of the absolute,
And the
but
relative.
keep your eyes grounded in the relative, else you be thrown against the rocks and torn asunder."
Hmm.
Something like that.
Yeah. Have you got any comment on that, Yvonne?
Well, I don't know the Kabbalion, so, but I do know that in this game we have to, you know, if we catch sight of the end, if we know where we're going, where we're returning to, that's not going to leave us. And at that point, we want to get there because we've awakened that in us.
Hmm.
And once it's awakened, we're not going to be happy until we get there.
Yeah,
But
it's
until it's
inexorable.
awakened, we don't know.
Sorry.
We don't know what the game is. You know, we're told in different cryptic ways and in religion and in a lot of different paths. But it's like we don't want to get stuck here too long. You know, like Jesus has this saying, pray that your flight be not in winter or on the Sabbath day. Now, for instance, in Christianity and Judaism, that would be a really difficult time to return. Why? Because you're struggling so much with this world that you don't have time to work on your path. It's like things get so difficult that, you know, you're just trying to, who's got time to, you know, ascend when you're just trying to survive? So it's like it's good to keep your options open and always be working towards getting through this labyrinth and get back home, because you don't want to wait until things get really, really hard. That's what I that's what I know from experience. But then
Hmm.
without some pressure, you're not going to want to go forward. So I guess it has to get hard to a point, just like they talk about the travail of the woman, which is our heart, or like an, you know, you before the baby's born, there's got to be all this suffering, and the before a chick comes out of an egg and everything that comes to life, there's this suffering and resistance. So there's that at the end of the journey that we got to really think about, you know, that we are putting off suffering for a reason because we don't want to go through it, but we do have to go through it. So it's better to go through a little at a time. Like stay on the path, always keep that one foot on the path. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Don't let yourself fall away from it too far, if that makes sense.
When everything in our life is pulling at us and our ability to ascend, everything. And it's that way for a reason, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's
Without that,
nature.
who would be the
It's
hero?
nature.
There would be no hero to the story if it was all peaches and cream, unicorns and rainbows, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's true. And coming into this world is painful, and leaving it is painful. And it's better if you know where you're going when you're leaving. You know what I mean?
Cayman put it this way: we are children without fathers, not knowing who the father is.
Yeah, yeah. We have to remember. It says, remember from where you have fallen. That's the first candlestick. And an Ephesus means permitted forward, right? So you're finally permitted forward. And it's like, oh, you've done a lot of good here. But remember from where you have fallen is an indication that you don't quite remember yet where you come from and where you want to return to. But you're doing good. That's the admonition. You're doing good. So keep going. you know?
Yeah. I mean, what? Because really, so the main. How can I word this question? So like,
I've been
like
running
the,
into that a lot lately where I can't articulate what I'm trying to ask.
yeah. So it's essentially like the main tools that think I kind of think that I need, Yvonne, in order
Can
to like.
hardly hear you, Father.
Oh,
Father.
sorry, yeah. I turned down the mic because there was a
Okay.
plane
There you
flying
go. That's
overhead.
better.
Yes, that's good.
Yeah, this mic is too expensive for this setup, but anyway, whatever. So, um, the main tools that I see uh, as appropriate for this would be number one is meditation and contemplation, and then the other one is the accumulation of knowledge, but not the accumulation of knowledge where it's like all intellect and no wisdom. Do you see what I mean? It has to have some. It can't just be information. It has to have some kind of application where it can have an effect within your being.
Right.
So, but I don't. I mean, yeah. But in terms of like, oh, I need to like read all the scriptures and figure out like the true nuanced subtext between each line for every holy text. I can't be bothered with that anymore. It seems unnecessary. Because I intellectually understand what it's saying now, you know. So do I need to learn all these things still? I mean, I guess it would help, but I don't know. I understand. Like you said, like I can see where it is where I'm supposed to go now. So all these fine details seem kind of irrelevant at the moment to me. I don't know. It might change, but that's how I feel right now. You know.
Yeah, you're young. You're young and you have talent and you have aspirations and your soul is calling you towards something that is obviously meant for you to do. And you're going to be torn. I mean, that's just, and you can't always put the same focus on everything, but you'll know though when it's time for you to grow more. I think the way it happens is that you grow some here and then you're pushed more spiritually. Then you grow, then you manifest it, and then you grow more spiritually. And you keep manifesting because, like you said, you have to show some kind of not it's a manifestation. You
Yeah.
manifest it little by little as you develop it inside of you. That's pretty obvious, right? For me.
Yeah, this is the thing. I spent pretty much 12 years obsessively studying like the occult and religions and all this stuff. I was so obsessed with it, and I just feel like I need a break from it at the
Yeah.
moment. I just need a break
Yes.
from mysticism. It's too much to constantly be going through. And then again, because I've like come into contact with like you and Phil. See, there's that line in the Upanishads that really like is pretty deep. It says the way to Brahma is through a teacher that has seen him. That's like one of the key lines in that whole book that really stuck with me.
The way to
So
Brahma is what? I didn't hear
is
that.
the way to Brahma is through a teacher who has seen him.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, so you're not stumbling around in the dark anymore trying to figure things out. And because, like, Steve, you might agree with me on this. I feel like a lot of the pressure has been relieved now that there's an intellectual understanding of the reasons for existence and creation and the purpose within it, and etc etc. A huge amount
Yes.
of pressure is relieved and a lot of peace has come as a byproduct of that. So therefore I feel like I'm kind of taking a kind of holiday from it at the moment, you know.
Yeah, when
Like
you
a
get,
well-earned break.
yeah, when you get too much up here and you haven't worked enough. I mean, like just doing what you love, doing with your family, you know, your community, whatever, wherever you're at, whatever you're doing, to get this down here and to see it, what it really means, it becomes overwhelming. It becomes boring after a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why see, can you like elaborate, Yvonne, on the reconciliation between the heart and the mind? Because
Yeah, that's the push. It's like you learn and you seek and you learn and you seek. And because nothing's happening, you're like, well, okay. And you just forget about it for a while. And you're supposed to, because at some point it catches up to you. And you go, oh, that's what that meant. And then that's when it reaches the heart, when it interacts with your emotions, with your actions, with the other things in your life. And then it kind of blooms, you know. And then
yeah.
you live that for a while, and then you start feeling like, something's missing, and you start searching again. That's kind of how it was for me. And it took a long time for all that I learned to get in here. But when it gets in there, though, it really changes you. It changes you just feel different about everything. You can see what's really important about everything, not just one thing here or one thing there. You kind of see, you know, like that little bird out there, how important that is, or, your children, or just the work that you're doing in front of you. Just, taking out the garbage becomes like a spiritual experience.
Yeah.
You
Yes,
know what
it
I
does.
Right.
Like,
All hail Yvonne with the garbage bag.
right. So I mean, the things that were drudgery, all of a sudden, everything just becomes this like important thing because it's your life, and you feel fulfilled within your life.
Which one of
And
those 12 dual opposites does that fall under that you were just speaking of, Yvonne? Can you think of that off the top of your head? Remember those
yeah,
dual opposites of Ptah Hotep?
yeah, it's like I can't remember any of them, but
Me neither can I. Neither can I.
but it's like that sense of, like be quiet and be talking at the same time. I remember that one because it's like just knowing that you're speaking from the heart, and it's important right now in this moment what you're saying, but you're not just talking to talk. You come to a point where you're just living in the moment, you're living in the now, no matter what you're doing, it's great. And you can see the value in it, and all that stuff. It seems so simple. And before you get there, you're like, oh, I gotta do this and I gotta do that. Everything is so hard. But when you get there, you're like, all of a sudden you start playing your piano, and like you start feeling like you're Mozart, I mean, no matter what you're doing with it. I'm talking to you, right?
Yeah. No, I feel like often you see like pictures of composers like Bach, and he's depicted like with a halo around him, stuff like that. And there are many great spiritual quotes from those from, like I said earlier, from great composers throughout the Renaissance, etc., where they connect spirituality with music. That's what they're doing, and even with God as well. It's very interesting. I find it, it's
Yeah,
bizarre.
remember that joke about the before you're enlightened, you take the water up the hill to get a bucket of water from the well, and after you're enlightened, you take the bucket up and get a bucket of water from the well. It's like it's the same life, but everything is, you just understand the spirituality of your existence. It's not that your existence has to change at all. Or
That's
it
where the
can't.
peace comes from, right? The blissfulness, the at ease or at one-ment or atonement. And
Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah. I can vouch for it because I experienced that. I
Yeah.
wouldn't blow that, unless I wouldn't say that to just anybody because
what you're talking about there is love in its essence, right? The truest love. Now, is love in a carnal mind the same as love in a spiritual sense, like the love you've experienced?
well, it's what it is you seek for it. You seek for it, but you only can imagine it. And when you experience it, when like your heart connects with someone, or your heart connects like with music or with your art or anything that you really love to do, and you, let's say you succeed in that moment, you write a beautiful song and you're like, oh, this is the fulfillment of that love, right? But imagine feeling that with everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you got to start somewhere. You got to find that connection with love in something, in somewhere. I think that what Frater is saying, he wants that connection with his music because that's where it's drawing him right now. Love is saying, here, come over here and
Yeah.
experience me this way. That's what I'm
Talking.
hearing. Maybe
Yeah.
I didn't get
Talk,
that.
yeah. No, that's true. Yeah. I mean, but there's another element which is kind of to do with the heart, because when I was like reading about like songwriting, I was watching this young English kid. I don't know if people have heard of him. His name's Jacob Collier, and he's a great musician. He's very young and he's won a Grammy already. And he was talking about songwriting, and he said that emotion is the chief guiding principle in writing chord progressions and different harmonies and stuff. And like when he said that, I was like, really? See, I'm so into it because I was just approaching it from such an intellectual, academic point of view. All of the emotional implications of it were like not considered by me. Now, for example, when I listen to certain great music, yeah, it does evoke, it's very emotive for me, like I'll never like cry watching a movie. A movie will never well me up, but certain music can. It speaks to me on a deeper level than than film does. I know it's different for other people, but that's just me. But when I made that connection that like emotion and chord changes are like one in the same, I felt like that I'm kind of breaking into the heart center that corresponds to music that way, rather than just the mental intellectual. And when you're playing music, when you're improvising, you can't use your intellectual mind. It's not quick enough for the speed of the music and the
Right.
speed at which your fingers move. And many of the great jazz musicians, they actually used a lot of heroin because it would allow them to abandon their intellect and then just play to their detriment ultimately. But it's yeah, there's and I think that music for me is going to allow me to find balance between my heart and my logical mind. I see it as the vehicle in which to do that. Well, also like my relationship with my wife as well, of course. I don't want to negate that. Um, but I mean, like within my own self, it's
Right.
really weird. I don't really. It's
Well, it's
it's
like
more
if
of an.
they teach you how to do the chords. I mean, if you don't know your chords, if you don't know your how to, do a melody, how to play the piano, how are you going to really improvise from your heart? So the mind is there to help you learn. I mean, that's pretty obvious stuff. I'm not trying to sound like a genius here, but you learn with your mind, but then you express it with your heart, what you've learned, and you put it in your own, you give your own print on it, your own imprint.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of putting the mind and heart together. That's also what happens in religion. You learn your religion, but you don't know what the heck it means until it gets to your heart.
Yeah. Well, it's like practice always follows theory, and that's the same. That's definitely true in mysticism, from my understanding. You have to understand. Well, maybe not actually. I don't know. Maybe there are some just peaceful people living on a mountain meditating all day and they become enlightened on their own accord. I mean that might be more true in the Eastern sphere. But in the
Right.
but in the academic, in the way the Western world is, it seems like the theory comes first and the intellectual understanding comes first. For me, anyway, that's my path. I don't know. It could be different for other people. I genuinely don't know. I don't want to, speak for other people.
No,
But
you
I know
have to
that's
have,
true for.
yeah, there's got to be theory. Like, when you're going to be a nurse, I took nursing, I took counseling. I became a counselor. I mean, first I had to learn everything about it, being a counselor. And then they throw you in and say, okay, now counsel people, had to go through my internship. If I wouldn't have known you know, the what it is you got to do with
Yeah.
people, then I mean, I still didn't like it. I have to be honest with you. I have a hard time counseling people. I like teaching, but I don't like counseling,
Yeah. That's
you
interesting you
know.
say that. Yeah, because my mother's a counselor and she keeps cutting down her amount of clients. She says it's like too much. But yeah. Did you I got a question. Did you study the Jungian theory, Yvonne?
Did I study what?
The Carl Jung. Did you study his work in your academia when learning counseling?
Can you turn yourself up a little? Colliers, you said, right?
No, Carl Jung. Did you study his
Oh,
work?
Carl Jung. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I studied him a little. I had to. I like all the archetypes and all that. Um, they help. They didn't help me because I didn't study him enough. I actually liked all the other psychologists. They were more theoretical. I understood Carl Jung after my spiritual experience, and before then, I didn't really. I had a hard time with symbolism.
Yeah.
Crazy, huh? It's
I
really
asked Phil about Carl Jung because I was reading all this stuff kind of obsessively for a couple of weeks, and I asked Phil about Carl Jung and whether Phil thought he'd completed the great work, etc. And he was very adamant in like, no, Carl Jung didn't. He was very intellectual and he was great at studying kind of like alchemy and etc. and all the things. I mean, one of his books I've got here, in like 5 of the chapters, it's about, he includes the fish in all the, he's because he's talking about the logos. But yeah, Phil was adamant that, that's my point, that Carl Jung was
I
not
think
enlightened.
I think he said that because he never made reference of the cross in the light as far as the salvation and the creator.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
know,
but
on an
he obviously,
intellectual level, he's got half the formula right.
yeah, yeah,
And he was the one that Carl Jung's the one who preached egoism in the shadow, right? In the shadow self and how to overcome that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's that kind of stuff. I read actually a woman. I forgot her name now. Tony something. She did his. She was a Jungian, and she talked about the female archetypes, the Madonna and the child, and the Amazon. She talked about all these aspects of the feminine, and how all of them are or the courtesan, like the little whore, how they all are part of a woman, the very pure part, the very strong part, And I understood that because being a woman, I understood what she was saying. And it was kind of helpful at a certain point in my life. But I don't think it would have helped me to like study all of his stuff, or I probably been led to it. So,
Yeah.
it just, I wasn't like led to it. And I think it was because I do have a very strong spiritual, um, I had a great need for salvation. It wasn't enough for me to know all my parts. It was how the hell do I get out of them and how do I bring them together? That was the real sticking point for me. How do I come together? Not how do I just look at myself, in different pieces.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
that's like the Osiris story, where he's in pieces and Isis
Yep.
has to put him back together again, etc. And overcome
Right.
because it's Set that splits him apart. Speaking of
Right.
which, actually, I'll just show you these.
Came and just threw out some good word salad. Spiritual, spirit ritual.
Spirit ritual.
Yeah, spirit ritual,
I bought these, Steve. I bought
What's up?
some
Nice.
Egyptian figurines.
Anubis.
No, that's Set.
Oh, I
There
didn't
you
see
go.
sideways. Looking forward, it looked like a jackal, not an ant.
Yeah. So I got Set. I've got Osiris. Although his
Nice.
skin's black, I might paint his skin green. He's got his little crook and flail.
Yep.
And then I got this Isis as well.
Sweet.
But I didn't get the winged Isis. And there's this cool little staff which has got the head of the ibis bird.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I got the Egyptian Trinity. And everyone was like, oh, you need to get Thoth though, man. A few people have said that to me.
Well, it says Egypt, my people, Assyria, the works of my hands, and Israel, my inheritance. So it's like you get the idea that God is the God of Egypt. So that all comes from the Osiris and Orion Nebula, all those, all that stuff. When I first had my spiritual experience, I didn't know anything about Orion. I didn't know anything about the stars really, except for astrology. And I was drawn. Orion was in the sky around that time of the year. It was October. And I was drawn to look at it for months, every night for like hours. I couldn't stop staring at it. And I thought, why am I looking at this big X in the sky all the time? And then later I found out like there was something in me that either came from there to help me or that left me and, took off. I wasn't sure. But then later I found Orion in the Bible and how he's called the fool. And of course, then later I found the tarot cards.
Yeah.
And I understood that Orion was the fool and all that stuff.
Yeah. And Orion was the constellation the ancient world chose to commemorate the underworld and the Logos as well. It's that,
and that's the association with the Sirius and Osiris is. Sirius is us looking at the light.
Yeah. No, it's very interesting. Yeah. Actually, I have a question for you, Yvonne, that's kind of a deep question. And I'd be interested to hear your take on it and compare it with what Phil said. But so after you complete the grand circle of creation, can call it that. I mean, there's many things you can call it. Like, what do you think will happen to you after your life? Like, what will become of your soul once you pass through the earth plane? Do you know?
What do you mean if you don't ascend before you die?
No. I mean, what I'm asking Yvonne, like, particular, what will be next for your soul beyond this lifetime? Where do you Yeah.
Yeah, it's real simple. The Bible talks about it. Actually, it says when the prodigal son, which I believe is Orion, when he goes home, because he winds up eating with the pigs, right? And the pigs are desires that want to wallow in the mud. They don't want to leave, right? But when he finally winds up there and he can't get any more satisfaction from this level, he wants to go home and be a servant in his father's house. And Jesus said the greatest in the kingdom is servant of all. what we do when we pass over here is we help those over here
So
from
what you
another
still?
dimension.
Ah, okay, yeah, because this reminds me of the Edgar Casey stuff about how he talked about how there are different dimensions and each one corresponds to a planet. So there's a Venusian dimension, but it's not people living like little green men on Venus in the third dimension as we look at Venus in the night sky. It's a different vibrational level of that, you know. So yeah, that I find that very interesting. I guess that's why they call it ascension then, you know.
Yeah, and that's why you've got to go through every phase, because you're not just the thought, if you're 6 years old of taking out working every day and bring your money home so somebody else can use it, doesn't sound appealing. It doesn't sound appealing on this level to want to be servant of all until you actually develop into that point. Then it
Mm,
becomes not only natural, but it becomes like as exciting as anything else that you wanted to do while you were here,
mm.
if
Yeah,
that
so
makes any sense. It
That's
yeah, it
really
does.
becomes more exciting.
It does make sense. It does. Yeah, it doesn't make sense in a more temporal, carnal perspective, but beyond that, it does. You know, to me, it does. I'm sure other people would be like, "What on earth are you going on about?" But I can comprehend what you're saying. Yeah, and that's to compare that with what Phil says. You're pretty much saying the same thing, just with very slightly different semantics, but the message is the same. Because you
Yeah.
know, my wife has said this to me, like when I was like uber studying mysticism, meditating like a lot, blah blah. She was like, "But what happens like once you attain this? Like, what's next? You've still got to live and do what you've got to do, you know." And and I guess that makes sense that you. I think Phil uses the term a cosmic gardener is
Yep.
the term he uses.
Cosmic Gardener. Yep.
Yeah.
And it's an inversion. It's like a complete inversion and conversion of your desire. It's not that you have to do that, it's that you want to do that. You
Right.
develop that part of you that wasn't there before. It's like, where did that come from? You know? And it,
Mm,
it really blooms in you. And I'm only just starting on that, by the way. I'm not very far into that. But I
mm-hmm.
can tell you, I know that I can see that growing in me. And it feel because after a while, you get tired of knowing yourself, you get tired of knowing, but you can never get tired of loving. You can never get tired of it. There's always something to love, always somebody to love.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like it just opens up this whole new dimension to serve anywhere in the universe, but especially probably want to serve people where you come from or come through, or
Mm-hmm.
places, like a person wants to be a teacher because he liked the teacher when he was a kid, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, well that's what I want to get into ultimately is teaching and teaching kids and stuff like that. That's like not teaching mysticism, but teaching music, you know. That's something that's that's where I want to that's the direction I want to head in a
Right.
mundane sense, you know. But that's yeah, I mean, there might be some people in the chat kind of like my age where like we have Saturn in Sagittarius, people that are like of similar age to me. And that's very much like, because the Saturn aspect is the authority and the great teacher. And then Sagittarius is all about higher knowledge and learning, but not quite in a mystical sense, in a kind of more of an academic sense, but obviously it can play into spirituality and mysticism. You know, it's still a very spiritual
Yeah.
archetype. It's just I find a lot of it. Um, I don't want to open this can of worms, but like that religions don't kind of teach spirituality so
Well,
much.
right. I think that's why we're on YouTube talking about it.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
Right?
mean,
I'm not
you,
laughing at you, Jack. Don't think I am.
no, I know, I know, but it's like the priesthood have vacated their responsibility to a degree. You know, our priests, you know, the Catholic priests aren't. I mean, yeah, they're all into like Christian mysticism and stuff like that, and Christian occultism at the Vatican, but they're not disseminating this to the Catholic followers. You know, like why? I don't know. It's bizarre. But that,
you
like I
know,
said, I'm not sure I want to open this can of worms because it's a whole nother subject. You know.
I do want to say something about that because I opened that can of worms, trying to teach people what you know without them being hungry for it, without them being ready for it.
Oh
It
yeah,
is it is
that's
the
a good
most
point.
unsatisfying experience you'll ever have. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like
No,
it's
I can understand that. That's true. That's why well, that's why you kind of stop going on about mysticism to all your friends and family when you're at some kind of gathering or something, because they look at
I
you
was
like,
just
what
at
the?
Poland today, doing that,
right.
trying to convey to people about, what I've been up to and how I see life and the virus and, the mask issue and all that other stuff. And for me, everything fits in a spiritual framework. And that's hard to convey to people that are stuck in the cars, bars, and stars mentality when they're just flooded constantly with the physical reality of, got to go to work, got to make money, got to eat, got to go to work, got to make money, got to eat, you know and they're just stuck on that. And everybody around me seems to think you live your life as a good person, and whatever you're gonna make it to heaven. Now, I never believed that. That's why I don't believe anything anymore. I just I'm trying to know things. But uh, when I was young, like Yvonne said, at 6, 7 years old, when I knew Santa Claus wasn't real, and as far as bringing you Christmas presents, is when the wheels started turning. Why am I here? And oddly enough, that's when your ego is formed. Your self starts creeping into your existence, right?
Yeah, yeah. It starts really earlier than that, but for sure. I mean, it's like every stage you leave behind, you probably ask that question on some level, like I hear, when you lose something or when you grow into the next level, that before just like we're right now in this COVID thing, we don't know anything. And so we got to learn everything, and we got to depend on the light and nature and the forces around us and the people and everybody that's doing everything they can and everybody that's doing everything to confuse the heck out of you. We got to kind of work through all that with what we have until we come to this new understanding of where we're going, because we're at a place we've never been before, period.
Yes.
you know
Yes, I agree with that. So
yeah, and we're where we're going, it's like I think we're being inverted whether we like it or not.
that's
We are
that's
being
in line with
inverted.
that Kabbalah info Lateman is preaching right now too. Yeah. And it's the entropy of our system is built up to where natural law has got to deal with itself, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We gotta understand all of nature, not just one part of it, not just, the physical, but the spiritual, the inner, the outer. We gotta understand how it works together so that we can make sense of what's happening to us. No one's asking us to give up anything, but to understand everything. And how it really works, how really everything fits together. And we're gonna get there because that's it's destined for us to.
We all have our hour, right?
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Well,
Brother, I just lost you.
what are you deep in contemplation right now, Jack? What's up?
Sorry. No, I was listening to Yvonne and I
Oh,
was like thinking about um what you said. But yeah, I don't know, man. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of
I think
like
we
I
all
was
have to
kind of like
realize
just I was thinking about what Yvonne was saying as I was listening there, and it's yeah, it's pretty deep. It's pretty deep.
she's always
Um,
pretty deep, but I
yeah,
like
Really?
having deep thinking friends.
Yeah.
which is why I'm on YouTube searching and seeking and looking for you guys because you're all deep thinking. Anyone who's here is deep thinking, and seeing past the facade is the first obstacle, right?
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, definitely. Opening up to yourself is like it's like going into space. You don't know what the heck's going on. But then once you're comfortable being inward, then you got to bring it all outward. And like before you were comfortable outward, and then you got to go inward and get comfortable, then you got to bring it all out. And it's like it's a job. It's a lifetime journey.
Yeah.
But we can't rush it. I mean, what if there's one thing I can say, rushing it ain't going to get us anywhere because it's a process we can't really rush. It's not like, oh, I'm going to do my chores and then I'm going to do something, rest. There's no such thing. You're resting within your understanding of who you are
Mm.
and what you're doing and why you're doing it.
Yeah,
And
that's why
so
I've
finally,
taken that's exactly why I've taken a break from studying mysticism obsessively. That because I feel like I just need to like rest and allow my psyche to like process all the information. No, I wouldn't even call it information, to process all the knowledge. So yeah, I'm sure I'll start obsessively studying again at some point in the future, but now not at this time. I just find like you need to recalibrate your mind, I guess, and
yeah,
then try
you're, yeah,
and I'm
yeah,
trying to like reconcile it with my heart as well at the same time, you know. But
yeah. And
yeah,
with your actions, because there's nothing
yeah,
more beautiful than knowing, how everything that you learned, that you're able to do something with it.
mm,
That's just beautiful.
mm,
And I realized all these things in retrospect too, like how beautiful my life was with my husband, for instance. And there was so much, struggle that, I mean, I did appreciate many periods, but each period that we got closer, it was after a huge struggle of trying to figure out what we're supposed to do and be, and then all of a sudden it just kind of fell into place, and like, wow, this is the beautiful part. We're not struggling right now. We're living it. You know what I
yeah,
mean? That's
yeah, yeah. No, I do know what you mean. But you have to navigate through and stumble around that makes sense
right.
within yourself. Yeah, no, I absolutely know what you mean. But yeah, I felt like on my own, if I'm on my own, and if I'm in solitude, I do feel often now like a great sense of peace and very at ease, and there's not much worry, you know. And I kind of like I still try and figure out, because you have obviously the initiation of the tribulation, right, which is the end of the journey. But what I experienced before that, and I know it's before that, um, was like a samadhi experience, where like I was using some kind of psychedelic drug, mentioning nothing, and I was in a tent camping with some friends, and it was pouring with rain, just pouring with rain. So there's like the water kind of archetype, and I just fell into this like mental singularity that the only thing that existed was God, and like I was that, and everything else was that. And I tried explaining it to all these other people that were tripping their balls off, and they couldn't handle it. They isolated me in my own tent with some guy. And then I kept saying to my friend for like hours, I was like, are we dead? Is this death? Have we crossed over onto the other side? And it was that experience that actually initiated a great amount of suffering, just a tremendous amount of like struggle and suffering, because I was trying to understand what had happened to me in context with the world. basically. I was trying to put the two together and go, okay, how did this make sense? And it wasn't until I really started to understand mysticism, really thanks to Phil, that it all started to make sense. And I'm like, okay, that's what happened. But it's definitely not, I know it wasn't like enlightenment, but I know it was the start of the journey of enlightenment. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, no, for sure. You saw what you saw where that place where without your body, you saw what
Yeah,
life was like
I
without.
experienced singularity. That's what I
Right,
experienced. So I understand what one singular thing is.
right,
That's what I think why I took to Phil's teachings like a duck to water, so with
right.
such ease, and understood it intellectually so easily, because yeah, I mean,
The
yes,
thing is, one of the things is that kind of happens, when you have that real powerful spiritual experience. I also fell into that awake, no drugs, and I couldn't come out. But what you realize after a while is that your brain is like a receiver. It's just like your TV or your piano,
mhm,
I
whatever.
said that in chat. We're radios.
Yeah, and you're picking up energies with all these different parts of your brain. And when you pick up the energy at the very deep, profound parts of your brain, they function different than this part of your brain or this part of your brain.
right,
The deeper parts pick up different energies than the outer parts. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And then you have to put that together. Like, what is my brain really picking up? Because you were put in this body to learn how energy works within this body. You
Hmm.
know what I mean?
yeah, yeah.
Bring
No,
it
I
to
understand.
its
I
fullest
understand.
capacity
Yeah.
or capacitance, right?
Yeah, not just like when you're out of the body, we all experience the same thing. But when we're in the body, we got to know how to function within this system. And that's the hard part after that. It's like, oh, I know what I'm like when I'm just spirit, but what about when I'm here in this physical part of, this receiver?
Well,
That's what it is. It's a receiver.
aren't we just fractals of God experiencing ourselves to define ourselves as spiritual through the physical?
Well,
It
yeah, God
almost
is
seems
in
to
all
me
of us having a different experience of
yeah,
himself, right?
yeah,
But your part is your part.
yeah.
And the way God is experiencing himself through you, that is where that's your work.
That's the narrow path. That's
Yeah, it's not how he's experiencing himself through through Frater. What's your name again?
My name's
Jack.
Jack.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Or how he,
Deus es veritas means God is truth, or God is the truth. That's what it
right.
means. Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting point, and that segues quite nicely into a philosophy I was thinking about in the last few weeks. And I was thinking that essentially life is meaningless, and this is what gives rise to nihilism and why we have nihilistic people. But a responsibility that we have is to define that meaning, because the universe is, to a degree, it's like a canvas for an artist. It's like a blank canvas, your life, and it's like, okay, what are you going to paint on this? What are you going to develop and grow, etc. And
Yeah.
I kind of like, I've been like in my 20s, when I was just, life was hell for me in my 20s. It was really bad. Like, I felt that meaninglessness and that nihilism and that vacation of all responsibility. But I found that still doesn't bring any satisfaction. It just makes things worse. And then defining now, clearly, like, I don't feel like I've defined it, but I feel like I see the light at the end of the tunnel of where I'm going in creating that definition of what life is. And I feel like that's a true responsibility that we have as individuals. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
want to talk for other people, but I feel like that's a responsibility I have for myself, is to define the meaning of life, because that's a very great philosophical question. What is the meaning of life? And I came to the conclusion that it doesn't really have any meaning. It's up to me, it's
Nihilism?
just for me to define what that meaning is and
Mhm.
what archetypes I can blend together to create that. I mean, ultimately, you're going to have to reconcile all the different archetypes, you know, into one thing.
Isn't the meaning of
Yeah.
life to recreate the light in which the world is? I mean, isn't that the meaning of life?
Yeah, it is, but there's still a big
Never,
prelude to
I just
that.
want to say something.
Sorry, Yvonne, go on.
No, I want to say something because about the archetype. I do believe that you bring the archetypes together, but you can't ever do it really well if you ignore the physical, because they're really built on the physical interaction with the spirit. I remember when I first developed my theory a long time ago when I first came out, I called it the bio-spiritual theory. And that goes along with nature. Nature reveals the spirit and it controls nature, right?
Mhm,
So your body is your lab, your laboratory.
mhm.
More than any book, more than your brain will kind of reveal to you your archetypes, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, that does make sense. Yeah,
Yeah, like yeah, you go into it and it wherever your light is able to pick up, whatever part of your brain picks up the light, it's like it becomes manifested in either some kind of archetype or into some kind of action,
yeah,
some
yeah.
kind
Well,
of word.
I found that's basically the main function I found from studying and practicing occultism is that occultism is what it does so well. It clearly defines archetypes and how they're separate and how they play intermingle with one another and how you can actually manipulate them to change your interior world and thus change your exterior world. That's what I found. Like, I'd say the most important word in the occult would be correspondence, because that's the learning of how all different things have their correspondence to larger archetypes, which are basically subdivisions of the divine, essentially. because
Mhm.
because God is singular, yes, but not is God isn't singular in physical creation. Everything has its own. If we use Kabbalah, for example, all the different Sephirah perform different functions, and there's different archangels and angelic choirs and lesser angels that will perform those functions on the behalf of the singular divine. Do you see what I mean? Does this
Yes,
make sense? Yeah.
and
So that
they also go along with different parts of your body. The
yes, yeah, well, yeah, everything has its correspondence
right,
How many major
astrologically.
organs are in the body?
huh?
Pardon, Steve?
How many major organs are in the body?
7, isn't there?
7.
There's
How
11
many?
systems, but there's 11 systems of the body, but I
7
guess
major
that would
organs.
be 11 system. There's the skeletal, the cardiac, the nervous, the digestive, the skin, that part of the body. There's also the limbic system. There's 11. The skeletal.
Systems, yeah, but I was saying organs,
Yeah, okay,
like a
organ.
heart, mind, or heart, brain, lungs. What else?
Right. Yeah, the seven
Yeah.
candlestick. That goes along with the chakras go along like with your hormonal centers.
Hmm.
They're very deep inside your body. And
Yeah.
if you want real change in your outlook, in your mental, you've got to clean those energy centers. They're
Yeah.
not just concepts. You're not going to get very far learning about the chakras or the sephira until you experience that energy within them, within your
Right.
own physical centers. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's
Yeah.
something
No,
for
absolutely.
meditation.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting you say the body is your own laboratory as well. I, I think that's why meditation and contemplation play such an essential role in all of this, because that's when I feel like I'm actually in the laboratory when I'm meditating, you know, and then the passage of time can become skewed. It can feel like I've been meditating for only about 10 minutes, when in reality, maybe 45 minutes or an hour have passed by or whatever. So, yeah. Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
trying to adjust my mic, Steve. It's all
Perfect. I think the biggest lesson we can all come to today in what we're talking about is that everyone is, everyone is true and right in their own, definition of that for where they're at today, because we're all where we need to be, right? I mean, we can strive for better, we can do better, and we can always see things as we see them, but there is only one truth, and that one truth is God. And
yeah.
I think whatever your definition of God is probably true for you, but God is God.
That's an interesting point, and this is something else I was contemplating on. Maybe you can correct me if I'm stumbling here, Yvonne, but I came to like a realization that atheism, polytheism, monotheism, pantheism, they're all essentially the same thing. They're just different perspectives of that same thing, and I include atheism in that, definitely, because if God is a singularity, if God is like, say, a monad, then that everything is simultaneously nothing at the same time in a weird way. I know it's not, but
Remember Nietzsche? Yeah, Nietzsche's The Death of God is really the death of your image and your idea and your idols of God.
Right.
That's really what dies. It's not God, it's everything that you think he is when you find the truth of what he is.
Yeah.
That leaves,
with that? What
so
dies along with that?
We have to have images and idols. How are we going to learn?
Right.
That's just the way it is. But we give them up as we learn the truth.
That's why everything in the Bible is personified, right?
Yeah, it's right. It has to be manifested through us, or it's just theory. It's just theory.
Or just a bunch of jumbled up nonsensical stories that, are just so far out there that everybody thinks, oh, it's just a bunch of garbage, throw it away.
Right. Yeah, you know that it's time to go inward when you start thinking like that. It's like when you no longer find any interest in reading and learning about God, that's the time that you got to go in. Otherwise, you're just going to lose the baby with the bathwater,
Yeah. Yeah, that's where I'm at right now, though. That's where I feel I'm at right now. I don't have any interest in the intellectual side of mysticism at the moment. I just feel like, sorry, this mic is just too good for this application. I just keep hearing stuff.
Hey, you guys, I'm going to leave this in your hands. I have to go. So
no, I got to get going as well, Steve, because
all right, guys, nice talking to you all.
Yeah, it's been a
pleasure.
pleasure.
I don't want to end it like this.
No.
Right.
I mean,
we'll do it again.
Okay.
We'll do it again.
I've got to have breakfast, and it's 3:00. I've got to get on with my day. So, yeah.
And just be the frequency you'd like to receive. Do what unto others what you'd like have done to you. And
that's 0 hertz, Steve. That's that's the frequency I want to receive, is 0 hertz.
That's the 0 point energy, right?
Yeah, and the whole new age concept of you have to raise your frequency. I don't agree with that. I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong in this thinking, Yvonne. I find that you have to lower your frequency. You have to bring it down to the stillness in meditation. That's the way I see it. I think the new age has got it all completely backwards on that. I know what they mean by that, but the semantics is important in this case, I think, because it clearly defines a difference between,
We can talk about that next time. I'd like to, because I want to do some reading on that, because I don't know anything about that. But I agree. I think I agree intrinsically with what you're saying. Yeah, but I want to actually read about that, because I know the Om is a very deep, low frequency.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe guys, I love you. I'm going to go. I will talk to you soon. Okay.
I think we all complement each other. We're the triune of truth on the way to the truth. Okay. I love you
Yeah.
guys.
All right. Take
Love you.
care.
All right.
Bye
Take
bye.
care. Thanks. Bye.
Take it easy. Thank you, everybody in chat. I'm glad you joined, and till the next time. All right. See you guys.